Hello, this is Mike Dell from Blueberry Podcasting, and today we're going to go through the website tab of PowerPress settings. So we're going to go to the back end of the website, go to PowerPress and settings, and we're going to go to the website tab. What this website tab is for is how and where the player displays on your site. Also, the links below controls those. So, get to the website tab, you want to have it enabled. So make sure that top one's checked. Podcast permalinks. Okay, if you have a page or a category page or a category that uses the word podcast, that's the podcast singular, just like that. Then turn this to match feed to page category, and that'll allow that to coexist. Otherwise, it gets involved with the feed. So I always just set it that way anyway. So just pull that down, match feed to page category. That way you can't go wrong. Next thing, this blog posts and pages section, media links. Okay. This by default it goes to below page content. So if you put in your show notes or your blog post content, it's the big text box in the post. Okay. This will put the player at the bottom of that by default. You can switch it to above. I like to have it above just so it's in your face when they get to that page. But always select one or the other. Don't put disable in there. You can disable it, and then you have to remember to put the short code in. And the short code right here down a little bit further, you'll see right here, this PowerPress short code right here. You copy that, you paste that where you want the player to show up. But that works. Even if you have it set to above or below, if you put that short code in, the player will move to wherever you put that short code. But if you forget to put it in there, it'll just be there on the page. So I leave it at either above or below. Don't disable it. Display player and links in WordPress excerpts. Certain themes on WordPress use what's called excerpts, where you see all the posts listed with a title and maybe a little bit of a blurb, but it won't have the full post until you click into it, like a read more thing. If you have that website and you want the player to display on that excerpt page rather than having to click into the post to see the player, click that. Hide player and links. You don't want to do that. You want the player and links to be there. Media player, display player, always leave that on. We've got several ways of disabling that player. Make sure that you're not disabling the player in any way. Okay, media links, that's the link to the MP3 file. You really do want that on your website, so leave that on. Display download link, or that's play a new window. You want that too, because that way people can hit that. They'll start playing your podcast. Then they can surf around to other pages on your podcast or on your site, or they can go to another site and they're still listening to your podcast. It's kind of cool. But display download link, and what that download link is a direct link to the MP3 file. Now I always like to click this over here where it says include file size and duration. That way it lets people know what they're in for. If it's a 50 megabyte file and it's 50 minutes long or an hour long, if they don't have time to mess with it, they'll know not to click on that until they do. Or if they're on their cell phone and they're on a limited plan, they don't want to use the bandwidth, they can wait till they get into Wi-Fi to hit that. Player embed link. This is if you want to allow people to embed your player on another website. And turn that on. You can also include that in feeds. I don't mess with that. I leave that off. Subscribe links. This is all the possible ways people can subscribe to your podcast that you're going to offer them. And just because you check them here does not necessarily mean they're going to show up on your website right away. But click all of them except for the email one, and I'll explain the email one here in a second. So check all of those, even if you're not in those yet, trust me. Then subscribe by email is a service that is for the listeners only. This is another opt-in email, but it's done by the subscribe by email service. It's not for you. You don't get the email addresses. You don't get to send anything to those email addresses unless you post an episode. But it is handy for people that don't have a podcast app and they just want to get it by email. And So it's a service for your listeners, but it's not a replacement for your own email list. So if you have an email list, I suggest leaving that off and using your own email list to announce episodes, because that's really all it does, is it announces episodes. And let's see, subscribe page. We can create a subscribe page from a template, so we'll create that right here. Now, it isn't going to show much because we haven't posted an episode yet, but you can go over to pages here. So I'm going to open this in a new tab, and you can see that now there's a page called Subscribe to Podcast. If you click in it, you'll see it's all gobbledygook, or it looks something like that. If we view the page, it looks like this. Now, we haven't set the artwork, and we haven't got all the subscribe links in there yet. These are the automatic ones, so they're there. But it basically is a page that explains why and how to subscribe to your podcast. Like I said, it'll have your artwork, and it'll have all the subscribe links that you put in a different tab. So look at the other video for the destinations tab on how to do that. And if you scroll down a little bit further, you can customize the subscribe widget if you're going to use it. The widget is just that. It's a widget. So if you go to the background, go to Appearance and Widgets. Okay, you can grab that Subscribe to Podcast widget, which is right here. Drag that into the sidebar and drop it in there. And in here you can actually format it as well. So you can have modern, squared, rounded, vertical or horizontal, all that. And then when you go back to your page to view it, you'll see that it's also in the sidebar. It's very similar to this link right here. So that's how you do this tab. Down here in the bottom, it has some more information on things you can use, short codes, playlist player. You can put a playlist player in. You can put a subscribe box in there, a skip to if you want to, have people skip to different parts of your thing. But we won't go into depth there. There's a troubleshooting thing here. So if you publish an episode and you don't see the player and you've got it all enabled and everything, having issues, and there's 4 yes answers. Just cycle through those and clear your cache and see if the player shows up. Play a new window settings. This just sets the size of the window. By default, it's 420 by 240, which is a decent size, but you can change that if you want to. Miscellaneous settings down here, media embed options, replace media player with embed. You can do that if you're doing video. I wouldn't mess with it. Auto add media, you can disable that or enable that. I leave it disabled. Don't mess with it. Warnings, you want them on, but you could disable them if they're bugging you. And that's really all there is to the website tab. So go to the bottom and save changes.